Okay, and welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Tuesday, September 28th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories read here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. And here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. The Rosebud Sioux Tribe of South Dakota is among 8 sites chosen nationally for a U.S. Department of Justice initiative addressing the problem of children being exposed to violence either as victims or witnesses. Phase 1 of the program, called Defending Childhood, provides planning grants of around $160,000 to each of the 8 demonstration sites. 4 of the sites will be chosen for Phase 2 when their plans will be implemented. The U.S. Attorney for South Dakota, Brendan Johnson, said the grant reinforces the universal view that tribal communities should become safer for children. She was the leader of the yavapie-prescott tribe for decades in the mid-20th century and reportedly the first woman to take on the role of a chiefess of a tribe in the American West. Viola Jimulla also was a force in the community, partnering with prominent residents such as Grace Sparks, Charlotte Hall, and Barry Goldwater, and taking a leadership role in the local Presbyterian church. But some Prescott officials felt few people remembered Jimulla and her contributions to Prescott, and they decided to do something about it. Recently, a mural of Jimulla was dedicated at the Rowie P. Simons Community Center. She's now the namesake for the Prescott Meals on Wheels dining room. Navajo Nation College is one of 8 tribal colleges to split $6.3 million in federal money from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Dene College plans to use its $700,000 Tribal Colleges and University Programs grant on the construction of new residential housing units for students with dependents. And today we talk with Scott Perez, the tribal liaison for the Lost Ladybug project, housed out of Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. Last year, Scott came to the Ojibwe Reservation here in northern Wisconsin in search of the bug, and he found one nearby here and near the Pine Ridge Reservation. The rarest of them, the 9-spotted native ladybug. That information and more right here on the Native News Update. Scott Perez, you were here on the Ojibwe Reservation last year exploring the possibility of finding some ladybugs as part of one of the projects that you're involved with. Let's tell us a little bit about where that project is from and what you're trying to accomplish with it.
Well, Paul, it's great to be back up here because the community up here, one of the teachers at the middle school has taken this project on. And what we're doing is there's a lot of non-native ladybugs have been brought into this country to help gardeners. And a lot of our native ladybugs are disappearing. And we don't know if that's directly related or if our native ladybugs are disappearing for a different reason. So we're trying to establish where all the ladybug populations are in the whole North America, all the way down to Mexico. So part of this project is to get kids involved in it. It's a citizen science project for kids. My particular job as tribal liaison is I'm very interested in getting our communities, our children, to know that science isn't something that's just done in a lab with people wearing white jackets, but it's something that we do every day, something the ancestors have done, and something that everybody does. So in trying to get, make this culturally relevant, make science culturally relevant. The project's moving along. We've had thousands of submissions, and I'm happy to report that the 9-spot, which is one of the very rarest of the ladybugs that had been disappearing, has been found in Wisconsin, just south of here in Buffalo County this spring. Last summer I was over at Pine Ridge, and the 9-spot was found just outside the reservation boundary, so we're sure it exists there too. So we're having great success with this project, and so I'm back coming through, talking to more people, trying to get more children involved, and children of all ages. I have a senior citizen center that's working on this project, and it can go in any direction we want, because ladybugs are important to us for agriculture and plants. They take care of our plants by eating the predators that prey on our plants, the aphids and such.
I was going to say this program is being sponsored by who and funded by who?
It's funded by the National Science Foundation, and I work for the group out of Cornell University out in Ithaca, New York, the entomology department there, Dr. John Losey and Dr. Leslie Ali, and it really is international in scope, because besides Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, all of our sovereign native nations, we want to take part in this. So it's a really, really good and interesting project, and I really feel it's valuable as more and more people get into their own food production and stuff. Knowing what these connections are with the animals and the plants is going to be very important. And I'd like some of the children to maybe talk to their aunties or their grandmothers and say, you know, when you had your garden when you were young, there were ladybugs there? You know, did they play a role? Because a lot of this this knowledge that people have from direct experience from years ago may help us get a better understanding of what's going on now.
I would think that the first impression of some people would be, why are they spending money or time looking at ladybugs? But you also raise the issue of them eating aphids and other insects and so forth that might be destroying produce. Tell me a little bit what you've learned about the ladybugs, the natural ladybugs, the native ladybugs.
Well, I wish I could say that I have been able to analyze, or we've actually had time to analyze everything that's come in, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. But we know that a lot of the people who are reporting to us are gardeners and small farmers. Mm-hmm. And the woman down in Buffalo County who found the 9-spot ladybug, she is actively working to restore her prairie habitats there. So, you know, what are these connections? We know that everything's connected, you know. We know that. Everything is connected. And so it's just as important to find out what is going on with ladybugs as it is with wolves or grizzly bears or human beings.
There's a lot of people in this area who've noticed that in the last decade or so that they've had these infestations with what they thought were ladybugs, but they're actually an Asian type beetle. What can you tell me? What's the difference between them?
Well, they are ladybugs, but they are Asian. They were imported by the USDA to help gardeners with their aphid control. Like, they figured, I guess, our natives couldn't do the job. And we don't know why all of a sudden, they were imported years and years ago, but all of a sudden, maybe in the last 10 years or so, they've really taken off. And like you say, people notice them because they come in your house, they get on your windows, they bite. I mean, little children playing with a ladybug and get bit, that's kind of shocking to them. And they smell bad when you crush them. So we're not sure. We don't know. We don't know if this number of these things is a good thing or a bad thing. You know, that's one of the points of this project, to find out where ladybugs are, what habitats they're in, what they're doing, and, you know, are there really harmful effects other than the annoyance of having them all over your house?
When we look at things like the 9-spotted ladybug, I've never heard of that, but it's a native ladybug that seems to be fairly rare. You're saying that they found one in Buffalo County in Wisconsin. They found one near the Pine Ridge Reservation. What have you found in terms of the diversity of ladybugs in the U.S.?
Well, there's over 500 kinds throughout North America. And I personally am starting to find a lot of varieties, and talking to a lot of people this summer, they are starting to notice more and more of the natives. Now, maybe that's just because they're starting to really look, or maybe there's something else going on and the native populations are going up. The 9-spot used to be one of the most common. As a matter of fact, it was the state insect of New York, but it disappeared from the state sometime before it became the state insect. You know, politicians don't move too quick. So, you know, that was one of the ones this was the one that really got people going, because how did this thing going from being so common that people would make it a state insect to we can't find it anywhere? They have found populations out through the plains. into the into the Dakotas, over to Washington State, and Cornell actually has brought some back, and they're now trying to breed them in their laboratory to release them in other places. So we'll see how that works out.
It's an interesting aspect of this project that you're involving kids at tribal schools in it. What kind of success have you had with that?
It's mixed. What it takes is a teacher who really wants to get involved, or it takes a lot of personal connection. I mean, I'd be happy to travel all the time and just visit with kids, every week. But it takes teacher commitment to do this. Here at LCO, it's been really good. Tammy's been really good with her kids. They went out and they searched. They submitted in the spring. I'm meeting with them later today to talk to the kids and encourage them to go into it next year. We've had success. The Parakwasasne Mohawk community in New York and the Tuscarora community. We have some success out in Pine Ridge, and we're getting there. I mean, it just takes some sort of dedication from a teacher who really gets interested in the project to make it happen and get the kids. But once you get the kids hooked on this, once they get interested in this, it always leads to more questions. I'll go and talk to kids in one of the community schools, and we'll be talking about ladybugs, and suddenly the conversation is into gardening, or it's into the native plants that they see down in their wetlands. And so, to me, that's what it's all about. It's showing all these connections.
I was talking to you yesterday, and we ended up talking about bees. You've been out talking to a lot of people with bees, and people who raise bees have been concerned about these massive kill-offs in colonies. And so, the survival of native species, whether they're bees or ladybugs, seems to be kind of tied to the environment and what we're doing with it.
Exactly, and that's another thing. It's purely anecdotal because I've just been talking to people. No one's documenting this yet that I know of. People are seeing more and more of the native pollinators now. It seems as the European honeybee populations have gone down, the native populations have come up. That may be cause and effect. It may not. We don't know. It may just be that it's time for the native insects to come back and do the jobs that they were doing here in the first place.
Scott, if someone was interested in trying to reach you, where can they get a hold of you to participate or get their kids involved at their own tribal school or wherever it may be?
Just go to the website, www.lostladybug.org, and there'll be a link there where you can find it when it goes to our people or our staff. You'll find me right there. Or just contact the website itself. Just go to the Contact Us link, and they will put you in touch with me.
Have you found any kind of a ladybug that you haven't been able to identify?
I find them all the time. I find them all the time, but we have experts there that when we upload the pictures, they are just excellent at identifying them. I look at them and I say, well, this might be, and usually they say, no, you're wrong, it's one of these instead.
Over 500 different species in North America continent?
Yes, and many of them you would not think were ladybugs because they're not all red with black spots.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I'll have to show you the pictures.
Scott, thanks for joining with us today. We'll certainly look forward to seeing a report on you as you come through here again on the Ladybug Project.
And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country. On this edition of the Native News Update, we want to say thank you for joining with us today. Come back again soon.